Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. I'm Lisa Richmond, and I'm joined with Elyse and Ginette, and we come here every Friday, have a delicious coffee, and talk all things spirit, what's going on, what the current events of spirit is. And this week, we feel this big kahuna of the combination of Mercury retrograde, and then Mars just came in retrograde today. And we are talking about how that has affected us already, how it is affecting us, and how it could potentially affect you in your world. So, welcome, ladies. Jeanette, can you explain to us what Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde has in common?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Funny,
But
not
then they
funny.
both start with M,
Yeah.
or what the F is going on?
Yes,
Mm,
exactly that. So, again, I'm not an astrologer, but I had a beautiful conversation with an astrologer yesterday who gave me a couple insights, and I did some research and such. So, Mercury retrograde started November 25th and goes until December 15th. Okay, so we're right in it. Mars retrograde starts today and goes until February 25th. So, Mercury, the planet Mercury, is all about like communication. There's other parts to it, but this is where the link is. So, when Mercury is in retrograde, oftentimes it can create miscommunication or missed communication. So, you get like tech glitches or the email that didn't go through for whatever reason. And this conversation that you get cut off in the conversation or things like that, right? So communication can kind of go awry in Mercury retrograde.
yes.
Mars, Mars comes into this conversation, and Mars is about in retrograde can also create miscommunication based on not understanding the words someone is saying or the intent behind their word, and then reacting quickly to what was said instead of pausing and being like, wait a minute, I feel a huge judgment came up for me and I want to attack. I'm going to pause, I'm going to rewind, and I'm going to re-listen to what was said. And then I'll respond. That would be the full high conscious response within Mars retrograde. However, when you get Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde like playing together, you have this super hot pot of like ridiculous missed communication and misunderstandings and so on, with a lot of triggered energy in there. So the big kind of umbrella idea within this energy right now that we stepped into today, and we did feel in the last kind of couple days leading up to it, is chill out before you respond. Chill, ponder, then respond, because otherwise it can just create so much more like explosive energy and unnecessary drama is what Spirit's saying. So that's kind of what we stepped into in the sort of dark side of what it can be. It can also be, though, Mercury retrograde can be a time where we kind of turn inward and we clean house and we, emotionally or physically, we clear space for new, right? Because we're turning inward, we're taking that time. And then Mars retrograde can also be an energy of like using that fire in new creative ways. So if you turn inward and clear space, then you have this beautiful space to create new things with that fire in you. So it's kind of like, do you want to get really caught up in drama and reactivity, or do you want to take this time and create a sacred space for new ideas, constructs, things moving forward? So those are the two kind of pieces juggling back and forth right now, as I understand it.
And Mars is in retrograde till the end of February.
February 25th. Yeah.
Ugh.
But here's
That's
here's the
my
thing.
ruling planet, Jeanette.
Well, mine's Mercury. So I get it. Mercury comes around often.
Yeah, it does.
And then I get really spacey and I'm like, I missed it. I forgot.
Yeah. Can you
But
feel it? Can you feel it when Mercury goes retrograde?
okay, so here's an interesting thing. I would have answered this a couple months ago as yes, always. This round, though, I have actually felt it being really neutral.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's because I did a lot of space clearing in the last while, and by no means am I saying I've got it all figured out. This might just be one grace period for me. I don't know. But this one I find I've been able to anchor a bit higher, and it has been somewhat successful. So, um,
When the two of you say that it's your ruling planet, what do you mean?
Like my sun sign is Aries, and
Yeah,
Aries
yeah, I see.
ruling planet is Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
yeah. So, I mean, it's a very interesting time, and I've noticed this um spicy miscommunication happening around me and could easily draw me in. But I'm doing my best to try and choose not to and like remember what's happening energetically and be like, okay, I don't need to take that personally or get involved in this or whatever. But I would imagine most of the people listening, most of you listening right now, would be able to look back on these past couple days, even, or say the past week, and see where there has been miscommunication happening with an edge of spice. And when I say that spice, I mean it almost like there's this like speed of reactivity because then we also have this energy of December where people start being in more and more and more of a rush, right? There's this big rush energy coming in. And so it's like this fire that can be really positive is being stoked by a lot of like pesky triggering human things right now. So it's making it extra dicey to move through it. And Spirit's showing me this image right now of somebody like running across hot coals and they're like, ow, 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 ow. Right. And they're like, it's that's that dicey spiciness right now of trying to
Mhm.
maneuver and tread lightly while everything is moving really fast. So it's a like when I said it's a hot pot, it really is this hot pot mix of stuff right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
One of the
Okay.
things I've been noticing, and you kind of spoke to it, G, in relation to, okay, so Mercury's driving us inward, which can be really great. What I'm really noticing too, to add more spice to the the simmering pot, is that I'm noticing it within myself, and I've heard it now from multiple people throughout the week. And for me, it even started as early as like last weekend. Um, that fieriness also internally. So getting frustrated with self, getting frustrated with maybe your own internal processes, maybe your own emotions. So maybe you're like, okay, I'm not going to lash out and I'm going to like reflect and what is this triggering in me and where is this coming from? And then these like combating voices internally getting frustrated. Why are you being like this? Why is this coming up again? I thought I dealt with this. What's wrong with you? And the mind, ego, whatever you want to call it, almost running amok internally as well and getting a little like spicy with self, which I don't feel is super helpful because, I for a long time, I think in the world, we had this like, we have to like call ourselves out and put things in its place. And like, and I think there can be a time and a place for like being real with ourselves around, is this helping me? Do I need to be having this response? But more from a place of like, okay, then can I drop into compassion rather than like, you suck. Why are you
Hmm.
doing this? No, 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 no. And I've been noticing that it's come up with people in relation to their health. It's come up with people in relation to their like mental, emotional processes, their patterns that they're playing out, expectations that they had about something. And like I said, I've been noticing it with myself as well. So there's also that extra added layer of, okay, great, I'm going to go inward and I'm going to kind of follow that nudge, especially as we're getting closer to the solstice and that, like, the holiday season and it's getting darker and it's getting colder in some places and, really wanting to cocoon in. And then we've got Mercury kind of driving us in. And then Mars is like, no, 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 no. And we're getting a little like nattery even in that internal space as well. So it can, for me, what's coming up and kind of what they're saying is it can lead to a real feeling of like lack of safety wherever you go, which is it can be hard to navigate that.
Hmm. Yeah, definite lack of safety. That's a really good word. And I think, I mean, that's one of the most unnerving things for people, right? Like when we don't feel safe, we are the most reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such a good point. Yeah. I don't know. How about you, Lisa? What, I mean, you guys have been so sick. So that
Yeah,
doesn't,
our household is really, 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 really sick. We've got pneumonia and chest infections, ear infections, and um, yeah, it's been trying. I honestly have felt the energy of the hermit so much with everything. Like just coming in, yes, sickness actually brings you inwards for sure. So where with Mercury in retrograde, I was really actually at the beginning trying to lean into it being more like, okay, how can I slow down and listen more and like actually use Mercury retrograde to the advantage in which it can be, right? And inevitably, because we were so sick, we did kind of come inwards, but in doing that, it felt like although it's been very tricky with little kids and I was single parenting it, where it could have been really, really uh, upsetting and very hard, it actually just turned to be really nurturing.
Mhm.
And we just turned on the fire, lit a bunch of candles. I did a ton of reading. We got into a book, and I've been doing reading and baking
Ah.
and watching
Mm.
movies and stuff, and not fighting it. Right.
Mhm.
And not being like, because, and here it went to like minus 42 degrees Celsius. Like we couldn't leave the house. It was freezing over. I was, like, and I thought all these things are piling up, but it gave me an opportunity to be like, we're just not going to go to activities tonight. We're just going to hunker. Everyone, let's go get our Christmas jammies on and let's watch a show or something or read or whatever it might be. So I feel like I actually did consciously have that in the back of my mind, being like Mercury retrograde, like let's see this, let's start this out that way. So that was really nice. I was affected. My oldest was traveling back and forth to BC, and of course, her flights kept getting canceled. She didn't make it was a headache. It was a real headache, and she's a minor, and she had to stay overnight, and it was very tricky as well. And that was when Mercury went into retrograde. But still, I was like, okay, like talking to him, be like, okay, how can we use this? It's just like time to relax, get to your hotel, kind of talked her through it. I'm like, hey, what do you need? Like, kind of thing. So I don't know. I think that if we sometimes consciously, when Jeanette, when you were talking about like riding the higher wave of this, like, didn't we kind of get spirits heads up of that, being like, okay, the month is going to be like
Mhm.
kind of a shit storm, but it depends on how you perceive it. Like, ride the wave, like you can observe it, right? And I had that channel like last month over and over from Archangel Michael, which is like what was it, the resonance? Maintain your resonance, maintain your resonance. And so I just like I had that like booming in the back of my head. I'm like, okay, it's times like this that we can actually consciously decide to jump into the pit,
Mhm.
or we can be like, okay, how can we like choose these little moments and allow ourselves some grace in this busy season, in this like all the stuff, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's planets, whether it's holidays, whether it's family occasions, whether it's sicknesses, we have the ability to choose. We really do. And also, like, it's not always perfect. So, like, you could choose because the day before you're like, yeah, that wasn't a good day. I'm going to reflect on that and have grace with yourself that it's not always going to be up here. Sometimes you go up and down, right? But that's going to be kind of the heart of it for the next like 5 weeks, truthfully.
Mhm.
So,
I find too, there's a lot of victim energy in this because these kinds of situations tend to create the victim energy. And I don't say that as a judgment. It is a very easy thing to fall into because people are trying really hard. They're growing, they're opening. Like humans in their growth and energy are tired. And we can list a whole host of reasons why. So it's very easy to fall into victim
yeah.
completely. And I think it's even healthy to fall into victim sometimes because it helps you stop and be like, I've had too much. This isn't fair anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
However, this is the part that tends to trigger a lot of people. And I understand why based on the perspective. But when you stay in victim and you just sit there and get angry and fester in victim, is when it turns from universal energies or situations into personal choice to be recreating the energy of victim. And that statement right there is what a lot of people dislike. And I have been there in those moments where I'm angry at that statement too. Like, I get
Yeah.
it, but the more we can be conscious in that moment and choose once again and choose once again, the more we can start to crawl out of that, even in the toughest situation.
Yeah.
Find that is something that is coming up for a lot of people right now in this energy of Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, where there's this anger piece coming up because people are tired, but they're now starting to circle in victim. And when the light is like shining on them to say, "Hey, do you think maybe your perspective could change?" is deeply triggering. And so
Yeah,
the
of
way to
course
invite
it
somebody
is.
out of that is so delicate. And I don't think there's one right way. Some people need like, almost that like whoosh, snap out of it, right? Some people need that. Some people need the gentle coaxing and encouragement to
Yeah,
step. There's no
yeah,
one right way, but it's if there's anything that I could stress to those listening, and this is something I've had to do also, is anytime you can catch yourself, pause in that moment and ask yourself the very honest question, am I victim swimming or am I consciously stepping out?
yeah,
In the perspective,
yeah.
right? Situations can be what they are, but in the perspective, and that's where everything changes. And that is what we need to really hang on to, I think, right now.
Yeah. Sorry, Elyse, I don't want to cut you off, but what's going on in my head is like sometimes I don't know if this is just because of personal, but it's just coming up really, really strongly as you're speaking, is when you can stop and ask yourself if you're victim swimming. One thing it could be like, what do I need? Right? Because a lot of times when we're in that, subconsciously or maybe even consciously sometimes, what we're really looking for is some compassion and acknowledgement. Right? Like, because if we're doing, and we move kind of into the martyr, and then all of a sudden we get really resentful, sometimes what we're really looking for is somebody to be like, hey, you're doing really well. And I can tell that you're working really hard and it shows. So keep your head up, and most times you're not going to get it. I hate to say it, but you're not. And then the resentment builds. And so really, like if you find yourself in that kind of martyr, that victim swimming, you can actually stop in one way to take yourself out of it instead of like being like almost not shaming yourself for being a victim because then that perpetuates it a bit. But you could say like, what do I actually need right now? Or what would feel really good if somebody said to me or some kind of acknowledgement, like what would take me out of that? And then allow yourself to be there for you, whether you do mirror work or whether you like go in and be like, I deserve a little bit of acknowledgement. So I'm going to say, hey, Lisa, you've been working your butt off and you've been doing the very best you can. And tonight you don't feel like cooking. And instead of resentfully I'm the only one who makes food. I'm going to say, hey guys, we're going to just order some pizza because we deserve it because we put in a week. And like, even if it's not money stuff or whatever it might be, it's like sometimes what you really feeling like you need from somebody, it means the most when you give it to yourself. And it's really then helps to kind of move out of that martyr, that victim mentality. Because generally there's a lot of like resentment that's building up in those situations,
Mhm.
especially in this season.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Or you call someone like Elyse and you're like, this is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And then Elyse is like, well, actually, though, do you notice this pattern or this pattern? Honestly, she's the best for. I sent you a meme the other day, Elyse, remember? Of like that friend, or did you send it to me?
It was both because I was going to send
Um,
it to you too.
right. And it was this one where this woman is crying and she's like, fine, do whatever you want. I was calling to complain, but you're right with all your knowledge. And right, it's true. You're right. Like it's so true. But like that's a beautiful thing is like sometimes when you can't give it to yourself, if you reach out to, then you can have that core friend, or maybe it's on a video or something like that that can gently call you out with the wisdom to give you that moment to switch it to if you can't quite do it yourself. I find that quite helpful. Yeah. What's your experience with it, Elise?
Lisa, you took the words out of my mouth. I was basically going to say the exact same thing. Yeah, just that um, when there is a victim experience, there's often an unmet need under the surface.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what I was speaking to around we can start to kind of shit on ourselves well, why are you being a victim? Why are you doing this? Da, 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 da. And, usually when we've done a lot of this work, we come to a place of there's something underneath the surface that's calling out for that, right? And we don't heal through those things with more resistance. We heal through them with nurturing, with love, with compassion. And that can be hard to access when we're already feeling like we're maybe in the negative energy stores, right? Because it's been so much, as both of you were speaking to, and health stuff too, right? Like that just mentally and physically depletes us more and more and more. And so, I think that um, if you're having trouble getting to those places, inviting in that nurturing, like you were saying,
Mhm.
Lisa, like maybe I can't access the why right now, or I can't, I'm noticing I'm really in a victim spiral, or I'm really angry, or I'm really, whatever it is. I don't know what I need, or I don't know what to say to myself, or I don't even know where this is coming from, but I'm just like effing pissed. What can I do to support myself right now to restore a little bit to get there?
Mhm.
On Wednesday, after I had a procedure on Tuesday, so my body was really depleted, and I was finding the really prickly energy. And like similar to what you were saying, Lisa, Wednesday we did a little bit of stuff. I had taken the day off, and then I was like, I don't want to leave the house. Let's just like watch movies. And we watched Harry Potter movies all afternoon. And I was like, oh, this was just like the best. It felt like so decadent to me. Like, it's a
Mhm.
Wednesday. Like, what am I doing? I'm on the couch all day, and I'm like having
Oh
snacks,
yeah.
and I'm watching Harry Potter with the Christmas tree on. Like, this feels fancy. But it was just,
Mhm.
it was so restorative, and
It's
necessary.
amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Giving yourself full permission. Do you guys ever have you ever had an issue like a limiting belief about that where like if it's a weekday and it's like during the day and you go and lay down because you're sick or you need to rest or you're not like that it somehow represents like laziness or like
mhm.
daytime TV or something like that. Like there's so much self-judgment for me that if I like to the point where like to my kids I'm like absolutely like you need nurturing that kind of stuff. But if to like on a Tuesday afternoon if I've got nothing going on just to sit down on the couch like that's a really hard one for me. It's like, no, like there's always stuff that needs to be done. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
I
used
even
to
have a
be.
hard time accessing that on the weekends sometimes. I'm like, oh, there's all these
Yeah.
things I should be doing.
Oh yeah, weekends are crazy busy. They're for other people, right? They're for like getting the stuff done that you can't on a work week,
Yeah.
right?
So then when the hell do you do this stuff?
You just have to make it happen. And it is
Yeah.
glorious when you start to release it and
Hmm.
make it happen because then you start to like, I noticed when it started to change for me, and I would be like, how lucky am I that I have this time now that I can carve out with my cozy blankets and my book and there's no one here or this, that, or whatever. Like I started to make it sacred and that
Yeah,
Hmm.
started to change for me. And it's like one of my favorite things now.
no
Hmm.
doubt.
Yeah.
There's
Hmm.
actually nothing better than being, for me, it's like putting the fireplace on when like everyone's gone. And I like light my candles or incense and I always sit down with my cards, right? And like even having like 20 minutes just to sit down and pull cards and do some journaling and put on some like music or something, that's so nurturing.
Hmm.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can all find those places, right? That we can find those spots and those places through this energy that can be tricky. And so yeah, let's let any kind of experience that you have with this, put it down in the comments, let us know, generate this conversation because this is a community and you're not alone in this. And if anything, maybe this brings to light some of those feelings inside where you're like, oh, okay, now even bringing it to the forefront of your mind and being like, okay, I'm going to allow myself this grace to have a little bit of rest time. You know what I mean? Like it's really important. So, yeah, let us know how this is affecting you and best of luck to everybody out there. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.